Hello, welcome to Joe Cook Yoga. Today we're going to get straight into our practice. So if you do prefer to sit at the start of your practice, then feel free to pause the video now for a couple of minutes. Have a moment seated, come into a state of mind where you would like to practice your yoga and begin. We're going to begin with downward facing dog. So move your equipment off your mat, place your hands and come up, lift from the hands to the hips and then extend the legs. Be careful not to push the ribs down to the floor too much. Roll your shoulders out, lift the front thighs back and up, lift all the way up the front of the legs, extend down with the back of the legs but don't drop, and breathe. And then rest from there back to all fours. Take your knees as wide as the mat, big toes together, and come down to downward facing hero pose or ADHO. Rest your head onto blocks or a chair if your neck needs you to. Widen your hands if your neck is a little stiffer, but keep the elbows off the floor and rolling the shoulders out, separating the shoulders away from the neck so the neck has space and the neck is quiet. If this space here between your bottom and your heels won't come together, there's no contact between heel and bottom, then you can take a block or a cushion and close that gap so that you're not extending your tailbone down into free space and creating pressure in your knees, but you're actually pressing onto a point of contact. Come up from ADHO in stages, so lift your head, look forward, separate the shoulders, get long length from the pubic bone to the sternum, bring your hands back a little, tailbone down, tummy button back. Now lifting a bit more upwards with the chest, still keeping the back flat. Hands a little further onto fingertips. Again, navel back, chest up, shoulders down. And then bring the hands all the way back and sitting onto your heels for a moment. Then we're going to sit in BADDHA, which for my body, I need to sit onto some blocks. So I'm going to place 2 blocks there. And I'm going to straighten out my mat. I'm going to bring my feet together, like so. So your heels are together and the equivalent of the ball of the feet together and the toes are aligned. And then if you need to, I know that I do, I'm going to bring some support for my hands as well. So because I'm sat up on 2 blocks, I also need some support for my hands to help me sit up taller. Press together with the heels, extend out from the inner thigh to the inner knee. Roll the shoulders down, press the heels together. I'm looking down to see how even the legs are. So you don't want one knee to be up and one knee to be down. I'm also noticing whether my knees are higher than my hips. So if my knees are higher than my hips, I need to work harder to press the heels together to extend out. If that doesn't solve everything for me, I might need to sit up higher. Now today I actually feel that I could sit a little bit lower, especially after having done the pose for a few moments. So I'm going to draw my knees together and I'm going to take one of these blocks out. Going to bring the soles of the feet together. Take the hands slightly behind me. Press down. So you can take quite a lot of weight onto the hands. Press together with the heels. Take care not to hunch the shoulders. Keep the chest nice and open and broad. But equally don't squash the shoulder blades together behind you. Draw the tailbone in rather than sticking your tailbone out behind you, and still aiming for the hips and the knees to be even rather than the knees lifting. And then release that, and we're going to lie on our backs. With any of these poses, if you find that they are painful and it doesn't feel like it's a stretching pain, you do need to be very careful because you're practicing at home. You might be doing unfamiliar things, so just take care that you're not pushing your body past where it can go, and if in doubt, then you need to stop and wait until you can get some direct advice. You need to have one block, and it's going to go beside your hip. Have a belt. A yoga belt is ideal, but some other supportive and non-stretchy belt will do. So it can literally be a leather belt, that would work. Hold on to it and initially stretch out one leg along the floor, and I have my right leg lifted. Then I'm going to hold the belt in my left hand, right leg, left hand. This hand is just going to hold the block against me, not underneath me, just against me. And then I'm going to swap the hands back, so right hand, right leg, and I'm going to take my leg out to the side. And what that block does there is it stops me from rolling over. So it stops the weight of the leg that's come out to the side towards you from making my whole body roll over. It's a little bit close for me today, so I also feel actually that it's so close that it's stopping my leg going as far as it might go. So it's got a little bit more stretch in it. So I've moved that block out slightly so that it's still supporting me, but it allows my leg to go a little further. There's a strong stretch on the inner leg here, but you want to make sure that there is also a lot of support going on by all the muscles of the leg. So don't just let the leg hang there. Ask the muscles of the legs to hold on. I'm going to draw the leg up. Of course, you're also supporting with the belt. Bring that leg down. Now where you're laid, if you don't have anything in your way, you don't need to turn around, but I do have something in my way. So take your second leg into the air, which if you're doing the same leg as me, that's your left leg. Your right leg is now stretching along the floor, left leg up in the air. If you struggle with this to straighten both legs, then you can bend the leg in the air. So it makes quite a strong bend, and take the leg out to the side like that. That is better than having the foot pointing that way and going like that with your leg, because that isn't actually a very helpful movement to open the hips. Draw this block in, as on the other side. Leg on the floor is stretching away. I've got a tension in that leg on the floor as well as the leg in the air, and I'm taking my left leg out to the side there. The block feels that it's supportive. It's not holding me back, but it's definitely helping. You need to balance between those two things. And then I'm just going to pause, extending out through the left leg, but also holding the muscles of the left leg, the large muscles of the front thigh and of the outer hip, drawing those in to help hold the leg there. So it isn't all happening just through pulling the belt. And then take your leg back up, bend the knee and bring the foot down. Stand in Tadasana, bring your feet together unless you find that sensitive on your back, in which case have your feet apart. Interlace the fingers. Now unfortunately, due to the camera angle, my arms are going to go out of shot in a moment, but I've interlaced the fingers. I'm going to stretch my fingers away, then I'm going to draw them towards you. I'm going to draw the shoulders down, and then we're going to lift up with the arms. Weight back into the heel, move your navel back towards your spine, draw your tailbone in towards your bottom, reaching up with the arms, drawing down with the shoulders. It's a very sunny day. I think you can see some of that sunshine on my arms. And then bring the hands back down again. Change the interlace of the fingers, turn the fingers inside out again. So that puts a different little finger at the bottom of the pile, and then bring the hands back up again. So tailbone in, navel back, reaching up. This is very tough to keep the shoulders under control. Bend the elbows slightly when you're right at the top of the pose. Bring the hands back down again and release. I've got a bench here today so that I can show you a pose, but you can use a chair for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to stand next to the bench. We're going to raise foot on there and we're going to bring the foot back so it's just in line with the toes. Okay, and if I need to, I'm just going to move my right leg, my standing leg, slightly out to the side. Now I'm going to draw my tailbone down because this side of my bottom particularly wants to stick out behind me. I'm going to drop my tummy forwards and I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm going to gather my tummy in, bring the weight back towards my heel, reach my tailbone down, and at this side, at the back of my hip, I'm going to draw that side of my bottom down towards the floor. At the same time, there's a big extension going on between inner thigh and outer knee, turning my ribs so that they stay facing the front. And I'm just putting my hand gently on my inner knee to make sure it doesn't come forwards, not to push it back, but to make sure it doesn't come forwards. You can extend out with the right hand and you can even begin to look towards that right hand. But make sure your awareness is looking at the rest of your body, even as your eyes actually look away. And now release. And I'm going to do the other side facing away from you so you can see the back view. So I'm facing away from you. Begin with my feet together. Raise the foot up onto your chair or bench and then move the heel so it's approximately in line with the toes. What wants to happen is this area in particular would rather stick out. It makes the opening of the hips less, and so it's not as challenging. So what we have to do is draw the weight to the back of the heel, lift the navel back and draw down and in with this side of your buttocks. Stand up straight through the sides of the body. Bring your hand to the inside of that knee, not to push it back, but to make sure it doesn't come forwards. Strongest work is here in the pose to keep this area rotating down and in. And then I can reach out and look over to that hand, but my awareness is still looking back at the rest of my body. And then release. Bring that leg back in. We're going to do some standing poses. So move your chair to one side, unless you don't have any blocks or unless you need a high lift for your hand in triangle pose. So step your feet apart for triangle pose. We're going to go with your right leg as the front leg, turn your left foot in, right foot out, brick behind the right calf, straight legs, broad arms, lifted legs. Bring your hands down behind the calf, lift the legs. Now that area of buttock that wanted to stick out when you raised the foot onto the bench, that is the equivalent of this side, and you need to draw that in and forwards on triangle pose because it would rather stick out on this pose as well. Look down, make sure your leg is pointing along your mat, so the whole of the front of the leg, the knee isn't twisted round towards the front. Reach up with your left arm if that's comfortable for your shoulders. And then come up, rest your hands. Feet face the front again. Bring them in between sides if you need to build up your stamina still. So the challenge is a little bit too much to keep them apart. Turn in your right leg, turn out your left leg. Right hip draws in, wide arms. Bring the hand down to that brick. Things to pay attention to on this front leg is that the whole front of it points along your mat in that direction, not towards me. And then remember the memory of the buttock, it needs to draw down and in. Lift your tummy button up, reach out with your right arm. And then come back up, rest your hands down, turn your feet to the front, bring your feet together, jump or step your feet together. For Padangasana, it's strongly related to triangle pose. I'm on a carpeted floor and I have 2 mats, so I've got quite a lot of cushioning already, but if you struggle to kneel, you could put an extra blanket underneath your knee, or you could even fold up the end of your mat. If you can't put any pressure on the front of your knee at all, if you place your knee or your shin onto a block, let me show you sideways, with just the very front edge of your knee there. Also, if you get cramp in the foot, you can have the toes tucked under in this method. Ideally your toes are stretching behind, but if that's not possible for you, you can arrange the leg like that for this pose. Make sure you feel stable. You're going to have, right side first, you're going to have one brick at that side of your block. You're going to have one brick at that side of your mat. Move away so that you can place the ball of your foot onto that brick. We're going to have the knee in line with the front edge of your mat and the heel in line with the front edge of your mat. And you should be able to start feeling some similarities to when we lifted our foot onto the bench. This side of your bottom wants to stick out. So knee bent to begin with, stand up tall in the size of your trunk and draw the tailbone in, reaching down and under with this side of your bottom, and again move your knee along the inner leg. Can you feel the relationship between that? Press down through the shin, move the weight away from the front of the knee towards the head of the shin and the center of the shin. Okay, so you're not bringing all the weight towards the front of the kneecap, a little bit further back than that. Release that pose a moment, and you're going to move yourself just a little bit further away from the brick so that this time you can straighten out the leg. So bring the ball of the foot there. There should be a slight outward slant with this leg, not excessive, but when you straighten your leg, it should still slant slightly outwards. So begin with the knee bent slightly, draw the tailbone under, straighten the leg, lift up with that leg just as much as you do in triangle pose. So you may not be standing on the leg, but lift it as if you're standing on the leg. Do your best to turn the trunk to the front, arms out wide, turn the palms up, lift up with this leg strongly, strongly, strongly as you lean over. Draw the tailbone in. The more you turn to the side or lean to the side, the more your bottom will want to pop out behind you. So you can take your left hand and reach behind you and just check what's going on there. Tuck it as best you can. You can have your hand down if you need to press through that shin a little bit. Do not press through the knee. And then come back up. Bring that foot back in. Put your hands down if you need to. And then we need to move slightly off to the other side so that we can do this to your left. So kneel at the front edge of your mat. This is called gate pose because the straight leg is like a 5-bar gate. We're going to do a very weird gate to begin with because we're going to bend the knee. Tailbone in and under behind you. Hand onto the inner knee. Sit up straight and tall through the trunk. Move the weight slightly back away from the kneecap to the top of the shin bone. Press through that shin, just like we would press through our feet into the floor. Press through the shin here that we're kneeling on to lift up. Turn the trunk to the front. Okay, and then release that and move yourself ever so slightly further away from the brick. It's really not far at all that you need to go, so that when you straighten your leg, there's still a slight outside slant on the kneeling leg, but the other leg can now become straight. Press through the shin, lift up the side of the trunk, pull up through the straight leg, arms out wide. Remember that tucking, lifting the front of the pelvis action that we've been doing. Turn the palms to the ceiling, reach over to the side. Don't let the bottom go out behind you, because what tends to happen is your bottom goes behind you and your chest comes forwards and you're no longer that slim front to back shape. Front's gone forwards, back's gone backwards, and you're all wonky. So keep your bottom tucked in, keep your arms, your shoulders and your chest in a line, even if you take your right hand behind you. Lift up through that straight leg just as much, in fact, if not more, as when you stand on it in triangle pose. This side of your bottom will be the one that wants to escape behind you, so really try to draw it under without clenching the buttocks. And then come up. Bring your feet, rather your knees, back together. And we're going to stand up. We're going to do a standing equivalent of what we just did. We're going to do PARSVAKONASANA. Brick for your right hand, feet wide. Turn the right foot out slightly. We're going to put the brick in front of the right foot. So take your left hand slightly behind you, bend the right knee, bring the brick down in front of the ankle, palm facing forwards, wrist facing forwards. Place the heel of your hand onto that brick, draw the shoulder under, turn the left shoulder to the front, fold deeply into a right angle on this bent leg, stretch out into the straight leg. Reach out with your left hand, palm to the front, palm to the ceiling, and if you're able to, reach over to make a long line from foot to fingertip. Sweep back, straighten the leg, turn the feet to the front, and then off to the other side. As with all the standing poses, feel free to bring your feet together between sides if you need to. So we bend the knee, we bring the brick in front of the foot this time, which is just slightly easier to keep the hips aligned. That's why we bring the hand in front. It also makes sure that that knee stays back, as I've said in a few poses. So fold as deeply as you can into a right angle here. Reach out with the right hand, straight with the right leg. Tailbone drawing under, same action as we've been working on. Turn the palm to the ceiling, reach over, reach out through the fingertips, but draw the shoulder down. And then sweep the arm back, straighten the legs, turn the feet to the front, bring the feet together. We're going to do half Uttanasana now, and I will show you to the side. Take your 2 bricks or a chair seat if you need to. Bring the bricks down underneath your shoulders, feet apart, lift up through the legs, extend pubic bone through to sternum, draw the shoulders away from the ears, and breathe. For some people, there's a strong leg stretch in this position. For some people there is less stretch these days. Perhaps your legs have enough stretch. But you still need to lift the legs. If you can, take the hands a little lower, and you need to be able to keep your legs straight, and perhaps even more importantly, to keep your back straight and your shoulders under control. There is no advantage in reaching the floor or reaching lower and doing it as a hunchback. Let your breath steady. If you can, bring your hands just to the floor. We're not going any further than this, so straight arms, straight legs, straight back. And then take a long in-breath before you stand up. And breathe out through that standing up process. Warrior pose 2, wide feet. Turn to make your right foot your front leg. So fully turned out in your right leg, left foot slightly turned out. Bend the knee, hand comes down the inner leg again. Strong, straight. So very similar to PARSVAKONASANA, but we're not going down here. We are just bending the legs, staying upright in the torso. Wide arms, and look along the front arm. Straighten the legs, rest the arms, feet to the front, turn to the left, so right foot turns in a little, left foot all the way out, torso and ribs face the front again. Bend the left leg, slide your hand down the inner knee to make sure that that knee stays back. No force there though. Wide arms, straight back leg, Look along your left hand. Keep your shoulders soft. And then straighten the legs. Arms down, feet to the front. Bring your feet together. So we're going to balance in half moon pose. Last time I tried this I was not very balancy, it was very wobbly, but we'll see. So I've moved off to one side of my mat, I have a brick in my right hand, and we begin in what looks like triangle pose. Resting my right hand on that brick, turning my chest to the front, I'm going to bend the knee, I'm going to bring my back foot in, reach forwards with my right hand and begin to balance. Bend the standing leg, bring the hand back, bring the foot back in triangle pose, and then stand up. Move off to the other side of your mat, turn, bring your hand down into triangle pose, keep your chest turned away from the floor, although your gaze can look down to help you focus, you don't need to look at the screen. Bend the knee, bring the back foot in, bring your hand forwards, come to balance. Reach out with the leg in the air, reach out with the hand above you. If your shoulder doesn't like that, keep your hand resting on your waist. Reach your tailbone to the foot in the air. Bend the standing leg, bring the foot back, the hand back, and then stand up. Now we're only doing one repetition of all these poses today on each side. If you want to do more than one, feel free to pause and do them again. That's easy. So we're going to take our feet wide for Parasvakonasana. So feet wide, feet face forwards, hands come down, either onto bricks or to the floor if you're able to reach the floor. Draw your shoulders back away from your ears. Lift up the toes for a minute to lift up the front of your legs. Rest the toes but don't lose the lift in the legs. Flat in the back. If you're comfortable to bend a little lower, begin to bend the elbows backwards. Keep the lift up your legs. Keep the extension through the front of the body and the back of the body for no rounding. Press the hands in the floor to lift up the shoulders. And if you can, you bring the crown of your head to reach the floor. If the crown of the head doesn't reach the floor, take a block and place the block there and see if that will reach. If you're a long way away, then the alternative is to place your forehead onto a chair seat. Keep the legs lifting as you push your hands into the floor, straighten the arms, come back to the half pose, then edge the feet towards each other. And then we're going to breathe in and then breathe out as we stand back up. Into downward facing dog now. So on all fours, tuck your toes under. We're working down towards some seated poses. Long back, wide shoulders, straighten out the legs. If you found the last few poses quite tough on your legs, or if you really struggle to straighten the back while your legs are straight, then take a long pause with the knees bent so that your back gets that length before you straighten. And then rest down. We're going to sit in Dandasana now. So if you're able to sit on the floor with straight legs, then that's what you'll do. You will sit on the floor with straight legs. Have your feet pointing upwards, fingertips down on the floor, feet slightly apart, legs slightly apart if you need that to be more comfortable on your back. Press down through the thighs, press down through the shins, not so much through the knees, but you should have straight legs, and reach out through the soles of your feet. So if that's your heel, reach out through the heels. Length in the side waist. If it's very difficult to straighten your legs, sit up on a couple of yoga blocks or a couple of books to help you to get more space in the back. Bend the knees for a moment. See how much more ability to lift the back you get through that, and then keep the back lifted, keep the sides of the trunk long, straighten out the legs again. And then release. And we're going to do the wide-legged version of that. So it's called UPAVISTA KONASANA in Sanskrit. Take your feet wide, ideally at least a right angle here, a little wider if your body lets you, but make sure that you're still able to have straight legs, that your feet don't drop in or out so they can still point upright. And again, if that's very difficult, you can sit up on books or blocks. Or you can have your knees slightly bent to begin with. Now that's not the pose to have your knees bent, but if you need that space to straighten your back and to not have stress particularly in your lower back, then have the knees bent to begin with. Toes pointing up, kneecaps pointing directly towards the ceiling. Use your hands to help lift your back and then straighten out the legs. Or move towards straight. Those of you who can straighten the legs, press through the back of the thighs. Be aware of how much of the back of the thighs are touching the floor. Are the inner thighs touching the floor more than the outer thighs? Try to even that up. Same with the calves. Can you feel contact at the back of the knee? And then release. And we're going to do that in a slightly adapted way. So I'm going to show you it sideways. You need your chair, or I'm going to reach for my bench again because it's here. And you're going to take your feet wide. So same position, you stay on your squarely on your mat, but you're going to use the chair seat. Place your hands flat onto the chair seat. Be sat upright. Draw the shoulders down and press down with your hands to help lift the side of the trunk. Now this isn't as powerful a lift as if you press your hands beside you, but it therefore means that your back has to do more of the work to create the lift. So it's teaching your back extra strength. So I'm pressing down with the palms of my hands there, keeping my shoulders down and away from a tense position. I'm pressing down with my legs too. I'm thinking about lifting my abdomen away from my pelvis. I'm thinking about lifting my ribs away from my soft abdomen. Nothing is pushing out forwards or backwards, so none of that. Just lifting the cylinder, the column shape of my torso upwards. And then release and draw your legs back in. Now, we're going to cross our legs and twist. If you struggle to cross your legs, then perhaps you want to sit back up onto the chair, and you can sit on the chair and twist. So cross your legs if you can. You may sit on a block or two if that makes it more comfortable. Sit up to begin with. As where we started, the knees are going to be higher than the hips if you are sat on the floor because of your feet being underneath your legs, but they shouldn't feel like they are dramatically lifted up. There should be contact between the foot under there, okay? We're going to turn to the right, so take the right hand slightly behind you, left hand across your body if you can reach, but keep your weight even on both sides of your bottom and turn. So the last pose we did, we were focusing on keeping the sides of the waist very long. Don't lose the sense of that here. So maybe close your eyes even. Take your awareness to the sides of your trunk, the sides of your waist, the sides of your ribs, and lift both sides evenly. In a twist, quite often, the left and the right don't feel like a matching pair. They get distorted. So see if you can find the left and the right waist and bring them back to be even. Not a very strong twist today because we haven't done a lot of twisting. So don't push yourself aggressively into it. We should never push ourselves aggressively into a pose, but certainly not when we haven't warmed into that kind of movement. Face the front. Go to the other side, so left hand behind, right hand across the body. Even up the weight in both sides of the buttock, even up the lift in each side of the waist. Close your eyes if you need to in order to really, really sharpen your focus of what it feels like in each side of the waist. Looking for lift, looking for no great sense of distortion, so evenness as much as possible. And face the front. Now if you are sat cross-legged, you will have had one of your legs in front. You need to sit cross-legged the other way round. Lift up, turn to the right again. Looking for the same evenness. And then face the front, and the same to the left. And face the front. I've slightly moved the angle just so that you can see better. Take your brick, and you won't need to straighten your legs out, but lie down. Have your feet as close to your bottom as your knees allow, and take the brick, come up onto your tiptoes, walk the shoulders under slightly. Now it's important actually that you watch this first, because you don't want to turn your head side to side. I'm not going to turn and look at the camera. Keep your neck neutral. So if you're not familiar with this position, then you need to watch first and then rewind a few seconds and do. So what I did there was I lifted up onto my tiptoes. I placed the brick right onto my tailbone, the very end of my tailbone, and then rested my body weight down. Draw my shoulders under, turn my palms up towards the ceiling, feet underneath the knees. The weight here of my body is on my shoulders, not my head or my neck. My head and my neck are really only taking their own weight. In fact, my neck itself is ever so slightly light on the floor. The back of my head is not pushing into the floor. It's resting, and it only feels like it's taking the weight of the head itself. It's very important because this position has the potential to injure your neck if done incorrectly. So if you have a neck injury, do not practice this position without being familiar with it and without having some external help. So you need to wait until you can go to a class to check out, or ask a medic whether it's okay for you to do this position. And even if you're familiar with it, it's never a good idea to look side to side. In the pose, I'm thinking about where my shoulder blades, and particularly the part of my spine that passes between my shoulder blades is. And I'm trying to lift that up as if it could go over the top of my nose and over my forehead. So lifting what's called my thoracic spine, which is the part of my spine between my shoulder blades, lifting it up and out of the front of my body, which makes it look from the outside like I'm lifting and inflating my chest. So there is some work in the pose, but also some resting in the pose because my pelvis is resting down. Now we're going to lift up onto the tiptoes again, take that brick out, gently roll the spine down, bring your shoulders out from under you, roll the spine down vertebrae by vertebrae, let your bottom rest onto the floor. Stay there for a moment, no sudden movements, maybe even draw the knees in. Not a strong squeeze, just drawing the knees in, and then with your knees bent, turn over to the side and push yourself up. Two more poses now, two resting poses. So I have a bolster here. It's basically a big sausage shaped cushion. If you don't have a bolster, You can also use a bundle of cushions for this position. You bring your toes together, knees apart, draw this in. Also, if it is too low for you, then put books or blocks underneath it to bring it up. And what you're going to do is you're going to lean forwards, and you can either cross your palms here and keep your head neutral, or you can turn your head to the side. The one problem with turning your head to the side is that you need to do an even amount on each side. So it can be more comfortable to either cross the arms or to take a cushion and just support the forehead. So obviously don't hinder your breathing, just support the forehead. Rest nice and solidly down. It takes a little bit of adjustment so you're comfortable. So if you don't get on with this position, if you prefer not to stay here, then you're welcome, of course, to take another position. You can use the bolster and have your upper back onto it as you lie in Shavasana. So the alternative arrangement is to lie down with the bolster against your middle waist, curving over, bring a cushion underneath your head, arms beside you, legs out straight. We'll rest for 4 or 5 minutes today, and I'll come back to you when that time is over. When you're ready to move, make small movements first. If you're forward, face down on the bolster, you need to move your arms so that you can use your arms to push you up to a seated position. Go slowly. Shield your eyes as you open them. If you're laid down, face upwards in a more traditional position, bend your knees and then roll onto your side, keeping your eyes closed so that you can shield them as you open the eyes. And then again, use your arms to sit up. So thank you very much for practicing with me today. If you're able to afford to say thank you for the skills and expertise in putting this class together, then you can go to my Ko-fi page, www.kofi.com/dontcookyoga. But don't worry if you're not able to do that. This content and this class is given to you completely freely, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.